The room was steeped in shadows, the only light filtering through the dusty blinds, casting thin stripes across the floor. Marcus lay still on the worn-out couch, his body heavy with the weight of years, the quiet ticking of time echoing in the silence around him. He had pretended to be asleep, his breath even and slow, as if he were lost in a dreamscape untouched by the harsh realities of life. But in truth, he was fully aware, locked in a battle of wills with the dark figure that crept closer, intent on his most cherished possession. He could feel the presence of his son, Elijah, the one he had raised with love and sacrifice, the boy who had once looked up to him with innocence and admiration. Now that same boy had become a man whose desperation had twisted into a dangerous hunger for wealth and status. The watch on Marcus's wrist was more than just a timepiece. It was a legacy, a reminder of his late father, a symbol of resilience in a life filled with struggle. It had seen him through hard times, and now it was the target of his son's greed. As Marcus lay there, he could hear the soft rustle of fabric, the faint sound of Elijah's breath quickening as he reached for the watch. It was a betrayal that felt like a knife twisting in his chest. How had it come to this? In his heart, he had always believed that family was sacred, that love could withstand any storm. Yet here was his own flesh and blood, ready to strip him of his dignity, driven by a need so desperate it bordered on madness. In that moment, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. He would not allow this act of treachery to go unchallenged. He had spent too many years being underestimated, dismissed as an old man clinging to memories. But beneath that exterior lay a mind sharp as the blade of a knife, honed by years of experience and the harsh lessons of life. He had seen the world turn on its axis, the good fall and the wicked rise, and he had learned that vengeance was a dish best served cold. With a sudden movement, he rolled onto his side, feigning the last remnants of sleep even as his heart raced. Elijah froze, his hand hovering inches from the watch. There was a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. Was it guilt, or merely the instinct of a predator sensing the presence of a larger threat? Marcus could see the internal struggle play out across his son's face, the lines of desperation etched deeper than ever. "Dad!" Elijah's voice was barely above a whisper, a plea wrapped in the guise of concern. "You okay?" Marcus remained silent, his breath steady, a mask of tranquility in a storm of turmoil. He could almost hear the gears turning in Elijah's mind, calculating the risks, weighing the consequences. But Marcus had already made his decision. The time for action had come. The silence stretched, thick with tension, until Elijah's hand fell back to his side, the moment of temptation passing. But Marcus knew this wouldn't be the end. The darkness lurking in his son's heart would not dissipate so easily. It was a cancer, festering and growing, and if left unchecked, it would consume everything in its path. As the minutes ticked by, Marcus's thoughts drifted to the past, the sacrifices he had made for his family, the nights spent toiling to provide for them. He had given everything, only to watch Elijah slip through his fingers like sand. The boy he had nurtured now stood on the precipice of ruin, ensnared by the very forces he had hoped to protect him from. It was a bitter pill to swallow, the realization that the greatest threat to his legacy was his own blood. Yet, beneath the bitterness, there was a flicker of something else: determination. He had played the role of the passive victim for far too long. It was time to reclaim his power, to teach his son that there were consequences for betrayal, that trust was not a commodity to be bartered for momentary gain. Elijah's footsteps retreated, the soft creak of the floorboards signaling his departure. Marcus opened his eyes, the world coming back into focus, the dim light illuminating the contours of his room. He sat up slowly, every joint creaking in protest, but there was a new fire in his gaze. He would not let Elijah's actions define him. He would not cower in fear of the shadows that threatened to envelop his life. As he glanced toward the window, the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue across the room. It was a new day, filled with possibilities and the promise of what was to come. He had underestimated Elijah's desperation, but that would be the last time. As the warmth of the morning light washed over him, Marcus felt the stirrings of a plan formulating in the depths of his mind. A strategy not just for survival, but for retribution. He would bide his time, waiting for the right moment to strike, to unleash the full weight of his resolve. This was not just about a watch. It was about dignity, respect, and the unwavering truth that family bonds could be both a blessing and a curse. As he stood up, brushing off the remnants of sleep and despair, he knew that the battle was just beginning, and he was more than ready to face it head-on. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the thin curtains, casting soft golden patterns across the worn fabric of the couch, Marcus stirred slightly, his heart still racing from the confrontation that had just unfolded. The room, once steeped in shadows, slowly began to reveal its contours, the familiar furniture and photographs emerging from the darkness like ghosts of better days. The air felt charged, thick with unspoken words and a lingering tension that clung to him like a second skin. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and glanced around. The watch, still resting on the coffee table where it had been left, glinted under the morning light, a beacon of both his pride and his pain. It had been passed down through generations, each tick a reminder of the legacy he had hoped to share with Elijah. But now it felt like a weight, a chain that bound him to the heartache of betrayal. Marcus let out a slow breath, grounding himself in the moment. He thought of Elijah, his son, his blood, the boy who used to chase fireflies in the backyard and laugh with a joy that lit up the darkest corners of his heart. How had they drifted so far apart? How had love twisted into something so unrecognizable, so desperate? His mind flashed back to the night before. He could still see the way Elijah's hands had hovered over the watch, trembling with uncertainty, as if he were trying to grasp not just the object but the very essence of their relationship. Marcus had seen the conflict in his son's eyes, the struggle between the love he once felt and the greed that had taken root in his heart. It was a battle Marcus had felt too, a desperate yearning for connection overshadowed by the looming shadow of betrayal. With a sudden surge of resolve, Marcus stood, the floorboards creaking under his weight as he approached the coffee table. He picked up the watch, feeling its cool metal against his palm, and stared at it, lost in thought. What was he willing to do to protect it? To protect what it represented? It was more than just a watch. It was a symbol of his life's work, a testament to the sacrifices he had made for his family. Marcus. The voice was soft, hesitant. He turned to find Elijah standing in the doorway, his face drawn and weary, the light illuminating the lines of stress etched across his forehead. The sight of his son, once vibrant and full of life, now seemed to echo the pain that filled the room. I didn't mean to wake you. Didn't mean to wake me? Marcus asked, the words slipping out harsher than intended. You thought I was asleep. Elijah flinched, his gaze dropping to the floor. I didn't want to disturb you. Marcus took a step forward, the watch still clutched in his hand. You were trying to take something that doesn't belong to you, Elijah. Something that means more to me than you can understand. Elijah's eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and defiance. I know, Dad, but I just thought. What did you think? Marcus interrupted, his voice rising. That you could sneak in here and take what's mine? What's been ours for generations? I thought maybe you'd understand, Elijah said, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. Things have been tough. I need money, and you don't even wear it anymore. It's just sitting there. It's not just a watch, Elijah. It's a legacy. Marcus felt a swell of frustration, the words pouring out of him like a dam breaking. It's a reminder of who we are, of what we've built together as a family. You can't just throw that away for a quick fix. Elijah's expression hardened, the flicker of vulnerability extinguished. You don't get it. You're living in the past, Dad. I can't build my future on your memories. I need to make my own way. By stealing from your father? Marcus shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. You think that's the way to build a future? By betraying the very person who raised you. Silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. Marcus could see the turmoil churning inside Elijah, the struggle between loyalty and desperation. It was a reflection of his own internal battle, the aching conflict that had been simmering beneath the surface for too long. I'm not a child anymore, Elijah finally said, his voice steadying. I can't keep living under your shadow. I need to take risks, to find my own way, even if it means making tough choices. And this is your choice? Marcus gestured to the watch, his heart aching at the sight of it. To turn your back on everything I've taught you? Elijah stepped back, the weight of his father's words crashing down on him. I don't know how to do it any other way. Marcus felt a sharp pang of sorrow. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the chasm that had formed between them, but the distance felt insurmountable. How could he help his son without losing himself in the process? Maybe we both need to think, Marcus said quietly, the anger in his voice fading to a resigned acceptance. I need time to process this, and you do too. Elijah nodded slowly, his expression shifting from defiance to something softer. Regret? Pain? I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. I just didn't know how else to ask. As Elijah turned to leave, the moment hung heavy in the air, each heartbeat echoing like a drum. Marcus watched him go, a sense of finality settling over him. He felt the weight of the watch in his hand again, the cool metal serving as a reminder of their fractured bond. The morning light continued to spill into the room, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, yet the shadows of their conflict loomed larger than ever. Marcus sank back onto the couch, the fabric worn and familiar beneath him. He closed his eyes, allowing the memories to wash over him. The laughter, the arguments, the moments of joy that had once defined their relationship. But now, those memories felt tinged with a bittersweet ache, each one a reminder of what had been lost. He needed to confront this head-on. This wasn't just about a watch anymore. It was about the very essence of their relationship. He had to find a way to reach Elijah, to remind him of the love that still lingered beneath the surface, buried under layers of resentment and misunderstanding. With renewed determination, Marcus sat up straight, his mind racing with possibilities. He would not let this fracture define their family. He would fight for the legacy that watch represented, not just for himself but for Elijah too. In that moment, he resolved to take action, to bridge the gap that had formed between them. It wouldn't be easy, but he could no longer stand by and watch as the shadows threatened to consume everything he held dear. The sun climbed higher in the sky, illuminating the room and casting away the last remnants of darkness. It was time to step into the light, to reclaim not just the watch, but the love and connection that had once thrived between father and son. With a deep breath, Marcus set the watch down on the table, the sunlight glinting off it like a promise. He would find a way to make Elijah see. He would remind him that love, however tangled and complicated, was worth fighting for. And in that fight, perhaps they could both find redemption. The morning light spilled into the dimly lit room like a reluctant visitor, soft and golden, chasing away the shadows that had nestled in every corner. Marcus lay still on the couch, the familiar creases of the worn fabric pressing against his back. He breathed slow, measured breaths, still grappling with the chaotic emotions swirling within him. The confrontation with Elijah lingered like a bitter aftertaste, a reminder of the chasm that had widened between them. He rolled onto his side, the light catching the edges of his watch, a timepiece that had seen better days, much like him. Its face, slightly scratched, reflected memories of laughter, struggle, and hard-won victories. But now it felt more like a burden, a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. His heart ached with the weight of betrayal, not just from Elijah's actions, but from the realization that he had somehow failed as a father. The soft chirping of birds outside the window began to pierce through the thick silence of the room. Marcus opened his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on his skin. For a moment, he allowed himself to revel in the simplicity of the morning. The scent of fresh coffee wafting in from the kitchen, the distant hum of cars on the street, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. But as he sat up, the reality of his situation crashed down on him like a wave, leaving him breathless. Elijah was still out there, grappling with his own demons. Marcus recalled the look on his son's face, torn between desperation and regret. He had seen that flicker of guilt, the way Elijah's shoulders had slumped when he had retreated. It was a moment of weakness, yes, but it was also a glimmer of the son he once knew, before greed had clouded his judgment. "Dad!" Elijah's voice broke through Marcus's thoughts, hesitant and small. Marcus turned toward the kitchen doorway where Elijah stood, his frame outlined by the soft glow of morning light. He looked different, disheveled, eyes shadowed with sleeplessness, yet there was a hint of resolve in his posture. Marcus felt a mix of anger and sympathy stir within him. "What do you want, Elijah?" Marcus's voice came out gruffer than he intended, the remnants of last night's turmoil still echoing. Elijah shifted on his feet, his hands stuffed deep into his pockets. "Can we talk?" He glanced down, avoiding eye contact, as if the very act of looking at his father would expose the truth he was so desperate to conceal. Marcus considered the request. He could feel the tension in his chest, the memories of betrayal coiling tighter around his heart. But somewhere within that knot lay a flicker of hope, a chance for understanding, perhaps even reconciliation. "Fine," he replied, gesturing toward the empty chair across from him. "Sit down." Elijah hesitated but eventually complied, his movements slow, almost reluctant. The two of them faced each other across the small coffee table, a chasm of unspoken words and unresolved feelings separating them. Marcus could feel the weight of the silence, thick and suffocating, pressing down on them both. "I'm sorry," Elijah finally uttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I shouldn't have tried to take the watch." The admission hung in the air, heavy and vulnerable. Marcus's heart twisted. "What were you thinking?" he asked, his tone softer now, laced with concern. "You know what that watch means to me, to our family." Elijah ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering across his features. I thought if I could sell it, I could finally get out of this place, you know? Start fresh." The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, revealing the turmoil that lay beneath his son's bravado. "But at what cost?" Marcus shot back, his voice rising. The anger bubbled up like simmering water, threatening to spill over. "You're willing to throw away everything we have for a quick fix? You think money will solve your problems?" Elijah's eyes darkened, and for a moment, Marcus saw something familiar in them. An echo of his younger self, hungry for more than what life had handed him. "You don't understand. You've never had to fight for anything. You've always had enough. I want more. I want to be someone." The words struck Marcus like a slap. He had worked tirelessly, sacrificing so much for his family. "And what about me? What about your mother?" he pressed, his voice trembling with unspent emotion. "You think this is just about you?" Elijah's jaw tightened, the defensiveness creeping back in. "I don't want to be stuck here, living in your shadow. I want to carve my own path, Dad. Can't you see that?" Marcus felt his heart sink, the weight of their shared history pressing down like an anchor. "Elijah, I don't want to hold you back, but you can't betray the people who love you to find your way. It doesn't work that way." "I don't know how to find my way without it," Elijah replied, his voice cracking, vulnerability seeping through the cracks of his bravado. "I thought you'd understand." A silence stretched between them, thick and painful. Marcus watched as his son's expression shifted, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. The sunlight streaming through the window cast a warm glow around them, but Marcus could feel the chill of unspoken words lingering in the air. "Where did I go wrong?" Marcus whispered, almost to himself. The question hung heavy, like a weight he had carried alone for too long. Elijah's gaze softened, a mix of regret and fear swirling in his eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong, Dad. I thought I could make things better." He paused, searching for the right words. "But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I need to figure this out without trying to take what's yours." Marcus felt a flicker of something deep within, a tentative hope, perhaps. "We can work through this together, Elijah. But you have to be honest with me. No more secrets." Elijah nodded slowly, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Okay, I'll try." His voice was barely a whisper, but the sincerity behind it resonated in the stillness of the room. As they sat there, both men wrestling with their fears and desires, the room seemed to shift. The morning light grew brighter, illuminating the shadows that had clung to them for so long. Marcus felt the walls they had built around their hearts begin to crack, the possibility of healing flickering like the first rays of dawn. "Let's start over," Marcus suggested, his voice steadier now. "Let's talk about what you really want. Maybe we can find a way to get there together." Elijah's eyes brightened, a hint of hope breaking through the darkness that had suffocated their relationship. "Really? You'd help me?" Marcus nodded, a small smile creeping onto his face. "We're in this together, son. Always." As the two of them began to share their dreams and fears, the shadows that had loomed over their relationship began to dissipate. The couch, once a battleground, transformed into a sanctuary where healing could take root. The watch, resting heavily on the table, became a symbol of their shared history, an anchor, not a weight. In that moment, as the light poured in, illuminating their faces, Marcus realized that while the road ahead might not be easy, it was one they could walk together. And perhaps, just perhaps, they could rediscover not only the value of trust but also the bond of love that had always existed beneath the surface. The room was cloaked in darkness, a heavy blanket of night that pressed against the windows. Marcus lay on the couch, the familiar creak of the old springs accompanying the rise and fall of his chest. The shadows danced around him, flickering with each gust of wind that rustled the trees outside, whispering secrets he couldn't quite grasp. He felt the weight of his watch, a tangible connection to his past, resting on the small table beside him, its presence both comforting and tormenting. Elijah had left, but his words hung in the air like an unresolved chord. "I just want something for myself," he had said, desperation etched on his face, the glow of the streetlight casting long shadows across his features. Marcus had seen the flicker of something darker in his son's eyes, a glint of greed that had mirrored the very darkness he felt within himself. Now, as the hour grew late, a sense of foreboding settled over Marcus. He turned onto his side, pretending to sleep, but his mind was anything but still. The betrayal had cut deep, twisting like a knife through the fabric of their relationship. He could still hear Elijah's voice echoing in his ears, each syllable a reminder of the rift that had formed between them. The night deepened, and with it came an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. Marcus's heart quickened as he heard a faint sound, something soft, almost imperceptible, creeping into his awareness. Was it the wind, or was someone in the house? He concentrated, listening intently. A quiet shuffling approached, and a shadow slipped into the dim light filtering through the drawn curtains. Marcus's instincts kicked in, and he forced himself to remain still, his breath shallow. The figure moved carefully, almost too carefully, as if aware of the danger of being noticed. "Elijah!" A mix of anger and fear surged through Marcus. What was his son doing back? He had left in a storm of emotions, but now he was creeping toward the table where the watch glinted like a beacon in the dark. The realization hit Marcus like a cold wave. Elijah was here to steal it. Marcus's heart raced, pounding against his ribcage like a drum signaling a battle cry. He could feel the blood rushing in his ears, drowning out the sound of the clock ticking in the background. Memories flashed before him. The countless hours spent working to provide for his son, the sacrifices made, the dreams woven into the fibers of that watch. Could he really let it go? He weighed his options, the shadows swirling around him. He could confront Elijah, unleash the fury that had been building since the moment he had sensed his son's intentions. But would that only drive them further apart? Or could he play this carefully, use the element of surprise to reveal the truth of their fractured bond? Just as the thought crystallized in his mind, Elijah reached for the watch, his fingers trembling with both desire and hesitation. Marcus's heart lurched. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, he opened his eyes, the dim light illuminating the contours of his face, casting harsh shadows across his brow. "Why, Elijah?" His voice came out like gravel, rough and laden with hurt. Elijah froze, his hand hovering over the watch as if caught in a web of guilt. The light caught the glimmer of his eyes, wide and startled like a deer caught in headlights. "Dad, Save it," Marcus interrupted, sitting up slowly, his body tense and poised for confrontation. He could see the flicker of shame wash over Elijah's face, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. "I just want to be free to be my own person. You don't understand." Elijah's voice cracked, a mixture of anger and desperation spilling forth. "Free," Marcus shot back, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. "You think taking what's mine will give you freedom? That watch represents everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed for you. You're not just stealing a watch, you're stealing my legacy." Elijah's shoulders slumped, the fight momentarily draining from him. "I thought if I had it, I could finally be someone. I wouldn't have to just be your son anymore." The words struck Marcus like a physical blow, and he felt the weight of his own failures pressing down on him. Had he really made Elijah feel like he was merely a reflection of his father's expectations? The darkness of the room seemed to close in around them, wrapping them in a cocoon of unresolved emotions. "Do you think I wanted this?" Marcus's voice softened, the anger ebbing away to reveal the hurt beneath. "I wanted you to have more than I ever did. I thought you'd find your path, but instead," he gestured to the watch, "you're trying to take mine." A moment of silence hung between them, thick and suffocating. The shadows shifted as the wind howled outside, mirroring the tumult within their hearts. "I don't want to steal from you," Elijah whispered, his voice barely audible. "I just want to be respected, to be seen as more than just your son." "And I want you to be seen as my son," Marcus replied, feeling the strain of their connection. "But not at the cost of what we've built together. This watch is part of that. It's a reminder of what it means to be a family, not just a legacy to be claimed." Elijah's gaze fell to the floor, the weight of their shared history heavy on his shoulders. "I thought if I had it, if I could sell it, I could start fresh. I thought you'd understand." "Starting fresh doesn't mean tearing down the past, Elijah," Marcus said, his voice steady but edged with sorrow. "Have you ever considered that the path to your future might lie in building upon what we have? We can work together to create something new." Elijah looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" Marcus took a deep breath, the air thick with possibility. "This watch, it's not just a piece of jewelry. It's a tool, a symbol. If you want to start fresh, let's do it together. Find something meaningful to both of us. I'll teach you how to manage the family business, how to grow it into something you can call your own." A glimmer of hope sparked in Elijah's eyes, battling against the shadows of doubt. "Really? You'd want to work with me?" "Of course I would," Marcus replied, a sense of warmth unfurling within him. "But it has to be built on trust, not theft. You have to promise me you won't let greed cloud your judgment." We can reclaim the legacy together, but it must be a partnership. Elijah nodded slowly, uncertainty still lingering in his features. I promise, he said, the words laced with sincerity. I don't want to lose you. In that moment, a fragile truce formed between them, a flicker of light breaking through the darkness that had enveloped their relationship. Marcus reached over, taking the watch in his hand, feeling its cool weight against his palm. Then let's start anew together. This watch can be a reminder of our journey. Not just my past, but our future. Elijah looked at the watch, then back at his father, the shadows that had once threatened to consume them beginning to recede. The night still held its darkness, but the first hints of dawn were just beginning to break, casting a soft glow through the curtains. As they sat together on the couch, the air filled with the promise of redemption, Marcus felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could emerge from this night stronger than before, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together. The dim light of the room flickered as the last remnants of dusk faded into the embrace of night. An uneasy silence enveloped Marcus as he lay on the couch, the threadbare fabric prickling against his skin. The weight of Elijah's words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and electric. He could still hear the anger in his son's voice, feel the tremor of desperation beneath it. For a moment, he let his eyes flutter shut again, the shadows of the room wrapping around him like a comforting blanket, though they offered little solace. Elijah had stormed out, but Marcus knew he wouldn't stay away for long. The boy always returned, like a moth drawn to the flickering flame of their fraught connection. He glanced at the watch resting on the coffee table, its polished surface gleaming even in the dim light. It was a relic of another time, a testament to sacrifices made and dreams deferred. Marcus could almost hear the echoes of laughter and the warmth of memories wrapped around it. But now it felt like a tether binding him to a past he could neither escape nor fully embrace. As the hours dragged on, Marcus wrestled with his thoughts. He had spent years building a life for Elijah, trying to instill in him the values he cherished. But somewhere along the way, it seemed that those lessons had been twisted into something unrecognizable. Had he failed as a father? The question gnawed at him, relentless and insatiable. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, and Marcus's heart raced. He kept his eyes closed, straining to listen. Footsteps shuffled into the room, hesitant and soft. "Dad!" Elijah's voice broke the silence, laced with uncertainty. Marcus forced himself to remain still, feigning sleep. He felt a rush of conflicting emotions, relief at his son's return, anger at the betrayal, and an overwhelming sadness that threatened to swallow him whole. "Dad, please." Elijah's voice cracked, a plea masked in the guise of resignation. I'm sorry." The words hung in the air, floating between them like a fragile truce. Marcus's mind raced. Should he respond? Should he remain silent, forcing Elijah to confront the weight of his actions? He wanted to reach out, to pull his son close and remind him of the bond they once shared. But the watch lay between them, cold and unyielding, a reminder of the fracture that had formed in their relationship. Elijah shifted closer, the sound of his breath hitching in the stillness. I don't know how to fix this. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you'd understand." Marcus cracked open one eye, just a sliver, enough to catch a glimpse of Elijah's face. Tear-streaked and worn, the shadows of doubt etched deep into his features. It broke his heart. "What do you think you were doing?" Marcus finally spoke, his voice hoarse and thick with emotion. Elijah flinched, eyes wide as they locked onto his father's. I thought if I could just have it, things would be different. I wouldn't feel so trapped." The admission hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears and hopes. "Trapped?" Marcus echoed, the word twisting like a knife in his chest. "You think stealing from me would set you free? I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted something that was mine. something to prove that I could stand on my own. Elijah's voice rose, desperation lacing every syllable. You don't understand what it's like to feel like you're just living in someone else's shadow. The truth of Elijah's words struck a chord within Marcus, stirring memories of his own youth, a time when he had yearned for independence, for a voice that wasn't drowned out by his father's expectations. He felt the weight of his son's struggle, the battle between love and resentment, but it didn't excuse the betrayal. Do you think that watch is the answer? Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. Do you think it will fill the void inside you? Elijah's shoulders sagged as he shook his head, the fight draining from him. I don't know. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken fears and unhealed wounds. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. You matter to me, Elijah. You always have. But things can't change if we keep running from each other. Elijah's gaze dropped to the floor, the shadows in the room seeming to close in on him. I don't want to run anymore. I don't know how to fix this. Marcus shifted on the couch, the fabric rustling beneath him. Then let's try together. We can't keep pretending things are fine, and we can't let anger drive us apart. I need you to be honest with me. Slowly, Elijah raised his eyes, uncertainty flickering across his face. What if I don't know how to be honest? What if I mess it up again? Then we'll figure it out. Together. Marcus reached for the watch, lifting it gently from the table. It felt heavy in his hands, a tangible reminder of the past and the future they still had to forge. This watch represents my legacy, but it doesn't have to be a burden. It can be a guide. Elijah's brow furrowed as he watched his father. What do you mean? It's a reminder of where I came from and the sacrifices I made. But it's also a chance for you to learn from those mistakes. You don't have to take the easy way out, Elijah. You can carve your own path. The flicker of hope in Elijah's eyes was palpable, like the first light of dawn breaking through the lingering night. You really believe that? I do. But it starts with trust between us. You can't hide from me, and I can't hide from you. Marcus held out the watch, offering it like a lifeline. Let's start fresh. This is yours, not just a family heirloom, but a symbol of what we can build together. Elijah reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing against the smooth surface of the watch. Are you sure? Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of that decision settle like a warm embrace around his heart. I'm sure, but it's going to take work, and it's not going to be easy. We have to confront the shadows together. As Elijah took the watch, the tension that had filled the room began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. The darkness that had loomed over them felt lighter, as if the air had shifted. I'm sorry, Dad, Elijah whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. I promised to try. I want to be better. And I'll be right here, every step of the way, Marcus replied, his voice steady and reassuring. In that dimly lit room, the shadows seemed to retreat, giving way to the promise of a new beginning. The watch, now resting in Elijah's hands, became a bridge between their past and future, a testament to the possibility of redemption, a reminder that even in the depths of despair, light could break through. As father and son stood on the precipice of change, the journey ahead felt uncertain but filled with potential. They were no longer just a father and son bound by blood. They were a team, ready to face the darkness together, determined to forge a legacy built on trust, understanding, and love. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains, casting a soft glow across the dimly lit room. Marcus lay on the couch, eyes still closed, but his heart raced with the remnants of their last confrontation. The warmth of the sun felt foreign, almost intrusive, in the wake of the emotional storm that had just passed. He could still hear the echo of Elijah's voice, laced with pain and desperation, as if the words were woven into the very fabric of the air around him. Why can't you just trust me, Dad? Elijah had pleaded, his voice trembling like a fragile leaf caught in a gust of wind. Now, as Marcus lay there, the weight of the watch on his wrist felt heavier than ever. It was more than just a timepiece. It was a testament to his life's work, a symbol of persistence through trials that had twisted like a knife in his back. He had fought tooth and nail for everything he had, and the thought of losing it to the very one he had nurtured felt like a betrayal too deep to fathom. He opened his eyes slowly, taking in the familiar surroundings, the worn-out couch, the peeling paint on the walls, and the faded photographs that lined the shelves. Each object whispered stories of a life once vibrant, now dulled by the shadows of misunderstanding and unspoken words. He could feel the stirring of something inside him, an ember of hope mixed with the ashes of despair. With a deep breath, Marcus sat up, the couch groaning beneath him, as if echoing his own discomfort. He rubbed his eyes, attempting to shake off the remnants of sleep that clung to him like cobwebs. He needed to talk to Elijah, to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. But where would he even begin? The kitchen beckoned, the scent of stale coffee lingering in the air like a ghost from the night before. As he walked toward the room, the floor creaked under his feet, each step a reminder of the fragility of their relationship. He found Elijah perched at the table, his head buried in his phone, oblivious to the world around him. "Hey," Marcus said, his voice breaking the silence like glass shattering on the floor. Elijah looked up, surprise flickering across his face before quickly morphing into something more guarded. "Morning," he replied, the words slipping from his lips with the weight of 1,000 unsaid things. Marcus took a seat across from him, the wooden chair scraping against the floor, an uncomfortable sound that echoed in the stillness. He studied his son, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the tightness around his mouth. The boy who once beamed with laughter was now a shadow of himself, trapped in a battle between ambition and the burdens of expectation. "I thought we could talk," Marcus began, searching for the right words, each one feeling like a boulder in his throat. "About yesterday." Elijah's expression hardened, his fingers tightening around the phone as if it were a lifeline. "What's there to say?" he snapped, the sharpness of his voice cutting through the air. "You already made it clear how you feel about me." Marcus flinched, the accusation stinging like a slap. "It's not about how I feel, Elijah. It's about trust. You have to understand that the watch isn't just a thing to me. It's my history, my legacy. I don't want to lose that." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you pushed me away." Elijah shot back, his voice rising, the tension crackling between them like static before a storm. "Do you have any idea how it feels to be living in your shadow? To feel like I'll never be enough?" Marcus's heart sank at the raw honesty in Elijah's words, a truth he had been too afraid to confront. "I didn't mean to overshadow you," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was preparing you for the world. I wanted you to have what I didn't." Elijah's gaze faltered, the fierce anger in his eyes wavering as he looked away. "You think I want your life? It's like you're handing me a burden, not a gift. I don't want to be you, Dad. I want to be myself." The silence that followed was heavy, a palpable weight that pressed down on both of them. Marcus could feel the fracture deepening, the gulf between their worlds widening. Yet beneath that tension lay a thread of yearning, a desperate desire to understand each other, to break free from the chains of miscommunication. "Then let's work on that," Marcus said, his voice steadier now, infused with a newfound determination. "Let's figure out how we can both move forward. I'm willing to let you take the watch, but—" Elijah's head snapped up, disbelief painted across his features. "What? You're serious?" "I am," Marcus confirmed, holding his son's gaze, a mixture of hope and fear swirling within him. "But it comes with strings attached. You need to promise me that you won't let it consume you. Use it as a reminder of where you've come from, not as a means to escape." Elijah's brow furrowed in thought, the flicker of indecision crossing his face. "And if I mess up?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his bravado. "Then we'll figure it out together," Marcus replied, the words tasting of both fear and relief. "But you have to be honest with me. No more hiding behind walls. We can't heal if we keep pretending." The tension in the room began to shift, the air growing lighter, as if the sun had finally broken through the clouds. Elijah's shoulders relaxed, and for a moment, Marcus saw the boy he once knew, the one filled with dreams and laughter, unencumbered by the weight of expectations. "Okay," Elijah said slowly, a tentative agreement lacing his voice. "I'll try, but it's gonna take time, Dad. It won't be easy." Marcus nodded, a sense of cautious optimism filling the space between them. "I know, but I'm here. We can do this if we both commit to it." As they settled into a tentative silence, the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting bright beams across the kitchen table, illuminating the cracks and crevices that had formed over the years. They were far from perfect, both still haunted by their pasts. But in that moment, a flicker of hope ignited, a possibility of redemption. "Let's start with breakfast," Marcus suggested, trying to lighten the mood. "I could really use some coffee to wake me up." Elijah chuckled softly, the sound like a balm soothing the raw edges of their conversation. "I think I could make you a decent cup, but it might be better than anything you've made in the last few weeks." "Hey now," Marcus feigned offense, a smile creeping onto his face. "I'll have you know I make a mean cup of coffee when I put my mind to it." As they moved toward the kitchen counter, the atmosphere shifted, their shared laughter mingling with the sounds of pots and pans. The watch still sat heavily on Marcus's wrist, a reminder of the journey they had embarked on together, but perhaps it was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with possibilities and the promise of understanding. And for the first time in a long while, he felt that the darkness was beginning to fade, slowly giving way to the light. The dim light of the room flickered as Marcus shifted on the couch, the familiar creak of the old springs beneath him echoing the tension that still hung in the air. The silence felt thick, like a heavy blanket, suffocating yet comforting in its familiarity. He could still hear the soft patter of rain against the window, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing outside and the tempest within. Elijah stood at the threshold, his shadow cast long against the wall, the fading light outlining his figure like a specter. Marcus felt the weight of his son's presence, a mix of apprehension and a flicker of hope igniting deep within him. They had faced the depths of despair together, and now it seemed they were teetering on the edge of something new, something fragile. "Dad!" Elijah's voice broke the silence, tentative and laced with a vulnerability Marcus hadn't heard in years. "Can we talk?" Marcus nodded, taking a deep breath. The air felt charged, thick with unspoken words. "Yeah, come sit." As Elijah approached, Marcus couldn't help but notice the way his son's hands trembled slightly, a small but significant shift from the bravado he had displayed during their earlier confrontations. Marcus gestured to the empty spot on the couch, and Elijah sank into the cushions, the fabric sighing under his weight. "I've been thinking," Elijah began, his voice barely above a whisper, "about everything, about us." "Good," Marcus replied, his tone firm yet gentle. "Because I've been doing a lot of thinking too. We need to get this out in the open." Elijah shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flickering to the watch resting on the table, a relic of Marcus's past, a symbol of the legacy he carried. "I'm sorry for what I tried to do," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion. "I was desperate. I thought if I had it, everything would change." Marcus felt a pang in his chest, a twisting sensation that mirrored the pain of betrayal. "You thought stealing from me would change your life?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Elijah, that watch isn't just a piece of jewelry. It's everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed. It's a part of me." "I know," Elijah replied, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. But I felt like I was drowning. I wanted to break free from your shadow, to prove I could stand on my own. But I didn't know how to ask for help. The confession hung in the air, thick and heavy. Marcus's heart ached as he watched his son wrestle with the weight of his choices. You don't have to prove anything to me. I just want you to be you, not a reflection of what I've done or what I want. Then why didn't you tell me that before? Elijah's voice sharpened, the frustration bubbling to the surface. It always felt like you were disappointed in me, like I could never measure up to what you wanted. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, the strands gray and thinning, a testament to the years of worry and heartache. I didn't want to push you. I thought if I stayed quiet, you'd find your way. I didn't realize how much pressure I was putting on you, or how lost you felt. Elijah's shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him as he absorbed his father's words. It's just, I thought I could take that watch and sell it, and then I could finally have my own life. Start fresh. By robbing me? Marcus's voice cracked, a mixture of disappointment and pain. What kind of fresh start comes from betrayal? Dad, please. I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted to escape this place, this life. It's suffocating. Elijah's voice trembled as he spoke, the rawness of his emotions pouring out. Marcus felt the ache of his son's longing resonate within him. He understood that feeling all too well, the desire to break free from the chains of expectations, to carve out a path of one's own. I get it, Elijah. I do. But there are better ways to find your freedom than through deceit. Tears brimmed in Elijah's eyes as he looked away, the shadows in the room deepening around them, swallowing the light. I don't know if I can fix this, he murmured, his voice barely audible as he stared at the ground, lost in the spiral of his thoughts. Marcus reached out, placing a hand on Elijah's shoulder, grounding him in the moment. You can't fix everything overnight, but we can start by being honest with each other. No more secrets, no more lies. Elijah looked up, his eyes searching his father's face for a glimmer of hope. What if I mess up again? Then we deal with it together. That's what family is for. The weight of those words settled between them, a fragile thread of connection beginning to weave anew. Elijah took a deep breath, the air thick with the scent of damp wood and lingering regret. I want to make things right. I want to earn your trust back. Marcus felt a flicker of warmth in his chest, a small flame igniting in the darkness. Then let's start now. What do you need from me? The question hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Elijah's expression shifted, determination replacing despair. Help me find a job. I want to show you I can stand on my own without taking anything from you. Deal, Marcus replied, a sense of relief washing over him. But you have to promise me one thing. What's that? That you'll communicate with me. If you're feeling lost, talk to me. Don't let it fester until it boils over. I promise, Elijah said, sincerity etched into his features. I'll do better. As they sat in the dim light, the shadows that had once loomed so large began to recede, replaced by the fragile light of understanding. Outside, the rain softened, the patter against the window a gentle reminder of renewal. Maybe we can even work on this together, Marcus suggested, a small smile creeping onto his face. You can help me with some of my projects around the house. Elijah chuckled, the sound echoing softly in the quiet space. You mean I'll be your free labor? Let's call it an investment in our relationship, Marcus replied, laughter bubbling up in his chest. And who knows, you might actually learn something. As they exchanged banter, the air felt lighter, the tension slowly dissipating like the rain clouds parting to reveal the sun. In that moment, Marcus realized that while the road ahead would not be easy, the journey toward healing had begun. The watch lay untouched on the table, a silent witness to their conversation, a reminder of the past, but also a symbol of the future they could build together. They had both been lost, but now, perhaps, They were finding their way back to each other. "Let's start fresh," Elijah said, a hint of a smile breaking through the remnants of despair. "Together," Marcus affirmed, his heart swelling with cautious hope. As they sat side by side, the darkness that had once enveloped them slowly receded, a new dawn breaking on the horizon of their relationship. The shadows may still linger, but for the first time in a long while, the light felt within reach. The dim light of the living room flickered erratically, casting long shadows against the walls like memories refusing to fade. Marcus sat on the couch, the fabric worn and frayed, a testament to years spent in contemplation and regret. The precious watch lay heavy on his wrist, a weight that felt both comforting and burdensome. It was a reminder of the past, a past that seemed to swell and contract around him, like the tides of a restless sea. Elijah stood at the doorway, his silhouette framed by the muted glow of the street lamp outside. The tension between them hung in the air, thick and palpable, like fog that refused to lift. Marcus could see the conflict etched across his son's face, an internal battle between love and resentment, desperation and hope. "Are you just going to stand there?" Marcus broke the silence, his voice rough like gravel. He felt a surge of frustration, but it was laced with an undercurrent of vulnerability. Elijah hesitated, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I didn't know if you wanted to talk," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Talking is what we need to do," Marcus replied, the words escaping his lips with an urgency that surprised him. "We can't keep dancing around this." The shadows seemed to inch closer as Elijah stepped into the room, the light revealing the cracks in his facade. "I'm sorry for what I did," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought I could take the watch and what? Buy your way to happiness." Marcus interrupted, his heart racing. "You think that's what I've worked my whole life for? To hand over my legacy like it's something you can trade?" Elijah flinched at the harshness of his father's words, but Marcus could see the flicker of defiance in his son's eyes. "It's not just about the watch, Dad. It's about proving myself. I felt like I've been living in your shadow for too long." The truth of those words struck Marcus like a blow. He had spent years building a life for them, but somewhere along the way, he had forgotten to build a bridge to his son's heart. He ran a hand over his face, feeling the stubble of his aging skin, the weight of years crashing down on him like waves against a cliff. "Then let's talk about it," he said, his voice softer now, though still tinged with the residual tension. "What do you want, Elijah? What do you really want?" Elijah's shoulders sagged, the fight draining from him. "I want to be my own person. I want to make my own choices without feeling like I'm disappointing you. But every time I try, I feel like I'm letting you down." Marcus felt a pang of sorrow for his son. He realized how tightly he had held onto his expectations, how they had become chains instead of guidance. "You're not a disappointment, Elijah. You're my son. I'm proud of you even when you make mistakes. But you have to let me in. You have to trust me." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken promises and the hope of a new beginning. Elijah shifted his gaze to the watch on Marcus's wrist, the polished silver glinting in the soft light. It was a symbol, yes, but it was also a barrier. Can I hold it?" Elijah asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid of the answer. Marcus hesitated, the instinct to protect his legacy clashing with the desire to bridge the chasm between them. Slowly, he reached for the watch, the cool metal sending a shiver through his fingers. He removed it and placed it gently in Elijah's outstretched hand. As Elijah cradled the watch, Marcus watched his son's expression shift from awe to contemplation. "I used to think this watch was everything," Marcus admitted, his voice low. "But I've come to realize it's just a piece of metal. What matters is the time we have together and the memories we create." Elijah's brow furrowed, his fingers tracing the intricate engravings on the watch face. "I want to make my own memories, Dad. I want to do something meaningful, to make you proud in my own way. Marcus nodded slowly, feeling a warmth bloom in his chest, a fragile hope taking root. Then let's find a way to do that together. I may not understand everything you want, but I want to support you. For a moment, the room felt lighter, the shadows receding just enough to allow a glimpse of possibility. You mean that? Elijah asked, looking up with cautious hope. Of course I do, Marcus replied, a small smile breaking through the stern lines of his face. But it's going to take work. We have to communicate, keep talking. And you have to promise me that you won't try to cut corners or take the easy way out. Elijah nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. I promise. I'll do my best. I want to earn your trust back. Marcus felt the weight of years of disappointment begin to lift, a slow thawing of the frost that had settled between them. Then let's start fresh, he said, his heart racing with cautious optimism. What do you want to do first? Elijah's expression brightened, a spark igniting in the depths of his eyes. I've been thinking about that art program downtown. It's supposed to be really good, and I've always wanted to try painting. A flicker of concern crossed Marcus's mind. But what about your job? Your responsibilities? I know, Elijah interjected, urgency creeping back into his voice. But I've been feeling stuck in that job. It's not what I want for my life, Dad. I want to create, to express myself. And I think this program could be a stepping stone. Marcus took a deep breath, weighing his son's words. Okay, if this is what you want, I'll support you. But you need to keep your job while you figure this out. I won't let you give up on your responsibilities. Elijah's face lit up. Deal. I'll make it work, I swear. The air hummed with renewed energy, the shadows of distrust dissolving into the promise of collaboration. Let's celebrate this, then, Marcus said, a smile creeping onto his lips. How about we grab a bite to eat? My treat. Elijah's grin widened. The weight of their conversation momentarily lifted. Sounds great. I know this diner nearby that has the best burgers. As they stepped out into the night, Marcus paused, glancing back at the familiar shadows of the living room. It felt different now, less like a prison and more like a sanctuary of newfound understanding. The air was cool against his skin, a crispness that hinted at change. Ready? Elijah asked, his excitement bubbling over. Ready? Marcus replied, feeling the hope swell within him like a tide rising against the shore. As they walked side by side, the darkness around them began to shift, the flickering streetlights casting a warm glow that illuminated the path ahead. In that moment, Marcus realized that while the shadows of the past would always linger, it was the light of the present that would guide them forward, together. The night was alive with promise, and for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt a sense of peace settle over him, a quiet assurance that they were stepping into a new beginning. Together, the night air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth as Marcus and Elijah stepped outside, the world around them shimmering with the promise of renewal. The streetlights cast golden pools of light onto the pavement, illuminating their path while the shadows clung to the edges, whispering echoes of the past. Marcus could feel the weight of the watch in his pocket, a steadfast reminder of the legacy he had fought to protect. Yet now it felt lighter somehow, as if the burdens they had carried were slowly beginning to lift. Where to first? Elijah asked, his voice a mix of uncertainty and hope. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, hands shoved deep into his pockets. The street stretched out before them, a blank canvas waiting for them to paint a new picture. Marcus glanced at his son, noting the way the flickering light caught the contours of Elijah's face. It was as if he were seeing him for the first time, not just the boy who had once idolized him, but a young man who was grappling with his own demons. Let's walk for a bit, Marcus replied, his voice steady, though his heart danced with apprehension. We can talk. They fell into step, the rhythm of their footsteps mingling with the distant sound of city life. A car honking, laughter erupting from a nearby cafe, the occasional bark of a dog. As they walked, Marcus felt the cool breeze brush against his skin, a stark contrast to the heat of the tension that had filled their home just hours before. He knew this was a pivotal moment. The air was electric with possibility, yet the shadows of doubt loomed just out of reach. About what happened, Elijah began, his tone tentative as if testing the waters. I didn't mean for it to come to that. Marcus halted, the sudden stop causing Elijah to glance back, confusion etching his features. You mean trying to take the watch? He asked, his voice edged with hurt. Elijah, you've got to understand how that felt. It wasn't just about the watch. It was everything it represented. The sacrifices I made for you, for this family. Elijah's eyes flashed, a mix of frustration and vulnerability. I know, Dad, but you don't see it from my side. I feel like I'm stuck in this loop, always living in your shadow. I thought maybe if I had the watch, I could finally do something on my own, something that's mine. The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Marcus felt the sting of betrayal turn into something deeper, a sense of understanding. You're not living in my shadow, Elijah. You're living your own life. I never wanted you to feel that way. I just wanted to protect you. Protect me or control me? Elijah shot back, his voice rising slightly. There's a difference, Dad. The silence that followed was thick, the kind that suffocated rather than provided comfort. Marcus turned his gaze to the ground, watching the cracks in the pavement as if they held the answers to his son's turmoil. I never meant to control you, he said softly, almost pleading. I just thought I was doing what was best. I didn't want you to make the same mistakes I did. Elijah ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling beneath the surface. And what mistakes are those? Working a dead-end job, trying to make ends meet? That's not what I want for myself. I want to chase my dreams, not be tied down by your expectations. The truth of Elijah's words pierced through Marcus like a knife. He had spent so long trying to shield his son from the harsh realities of life that he had failed to see the dreams flickering in his eyes. What are your dreams, Elijah? He asked quietly, his heart beginning to open to the possibility of understanding. I want to start my own business, Elijah admitted, his voice gaining strength. I've got ideas. I've been sketching designs for this app that could help people manage their finances better. But every time I think of taking that leap, I freeze up. It's like I'm scared to fail, scared of what you'll think. Marcus felt a swell of pride rise within him, mixed with the ache of regret. You should have told me, he murmured, glancing sideways at his son. I would have supported you. I didn't think you'd take me seriously, Elijah said, his tone softening. I thought you'd want me to stay safe and keep doing what you did. The honesty hung between them, transforming the air once thick with tension into a fragile thread of connection. Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself against the whirlwind of emotions. You deserve to chase your dreams, Elijah. I want that for you, even if it scares me. The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly, the tension in his jaw easing. Really? Really? Marcus affirmed, his heart swelling with a newfound determination. I want you to be happy, even if it means stepping away from what I envisioned for you. But we need to do this together. I can't just hand you the watch and expect that to solve everything. Elijah nodded, his expression shifting from skepticism to tentative hope. So, what do we do now? The question hung in the air like a weightless balloon, floating with possibility. Marcus felt the corners of his mouth tug upwards, a smile breaking through the remnants of their earlier conflict. How about we sit down together and start mapping out your ideas? You can show me what you've got, and we can figure out a plan. Seriously? Elijah asked, disbelief dancing in his eyes. Absolutely. And who knows? Maybe I can help you get it off the ground, Marcus replied, his voice infused with a warmth that felt foreign yet welcome. I'd like that, Elijah said, a hint of a smile creeping onto his face. "I'd really like that." As they resumed their walk, the city around them buzzed with life, the sounds of laughter and conversation echoing in the night. The stars began to pierce the darkness above, twinkling like tiny beacons of hope. For the first time in a long while, Marcus felt the shadow of despair recede, replaced by the light of possibility. "Let's get some coffee first," Marcus suggested, his spirits lifting. "I could use a caffeine boost before we dive into your dreams." "Coffee? Now you're speaking my language." Elijah chuckled, the tension from earlier fading like mist in the morning sun. They made their way to a nearby cafe, the warm glow spilling from the windows welcoming them like an embrace. As they stepped inside, the rich aroma of coffee filled the air, wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. They settled into a corner booth, the dim light casting soft shadows on their faces, creating an intimate space for their blossoming connection. As they sipped their drinks, Elijah pulled out his sketchbook, the pages filled with ideas and concepts. "So, here's what I've been working on," he said, a spark igniting in his eyes as he flipped through the sketches. Each design was a reflection of his ambition, a testament to his desire to forge his own path. Marcus listened intently, a sense of pride swelling within him. With each page, he felt the weight of the watch in his pocket shift from a burden to a symbol of hope, a reminder that their bond could be rebuilt, stronger than before. The darkness of their past began to fade, replaced by the light of understanding, and for the first time in ages, Marcus believed they could face the future together. As they discussed the designs, the cafe around them filled with laughter and warmth, the chatter of patrons blending into a melody of renewed hope. Marcus realized that the shadows that had once threatened to consume them were, in fact, simply a backdrop for the light they were beginning to create together. They were no longer defined by the past. They were stepping into a future filled with possibilities, hand in hand, ready to chase their dreams together. 0, 0. The air in the dimly lit room felt charged, as if the very walls were holding their breath, caught in a moment suspended in time. Marcus sat on the couch, his eyes fixed on the watch that now lay, untouched, between him and Elijah. The ticking hands seemed louder than before, each second echoing the weight of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. The watch, once a cherished symbol of legacy, now felt like a silent witness to the fragile truce they had forged. It was an heirloom, an intricate piece of craftsmanship that had been passed down through generations, its golden surface reflecting not just time, but the history of their family. Elijah shifted uncomfortably, his gaze darting between the watch and his father's weary face. The shadows danced around them, flickering with the soft light from the single lamp in the corner, casting elongated silhouettes that mirrored their emotional turmoil. "Dad?" Elijah finally murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to. I just what?" Marcus interrupted, his tone sharper than he intended. "Just wanted something that wasn't yours? Something that you could never earn." He felt the sting of disappointment coil in his chest, a familiar ache that had become part of his daily existence. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the intensity of their confrontation had pushed the very walls inward. Memories of their past together, laughter, shared dreams, and the warmth of familial bonds seemed to fade into the background, overshadowed by the weight of their current conflict. Elijah clenched his fists, frustration bubbling just beneath the surface. "You don't understand. You've always had these expectations, this pressure to be something I'm not. I just wanted to feel like I could stand on my own." His words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered, each one a dagger aimed at the heart of their complicated relationship. He felt a surge of emotions, the pent-up anger, the deep-seated fear of inadequacy, and a desperate need for validation. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his son's words. He had always believed in Elijah's potential, but perhaps he had been too rigid in his expectations, too focused on the legacy he wanted to pass down. "I just want you to be better than I was. I thought that was what you needed," he said, his voice softening as he searched for the right words. "I didn't realize I was pushing you away." The admission sparked a flicker of vulnerability in him, a crack in the armor he had built around his heart. Elijah's expression shifted, the anger in his eyes giving way to something deeper. Shame, perhaps, or a flicker of understanding. "It's just, I feel like I'm always in your shadow. No matter what I do, I can't escape it." He paused, taking a step closer to the couch, the tension between them palpable. "And when I saw you holding that watch, I thought maybe if I had it, I'd finally have something of my own." The words hung in the air, heavy and poignant, as if they were both standing on the precipice of a revelation that could change everything. Marcus's heart ached at the sight of his son standing there, vulnerable and exposed. "Elijah," he said softly, "that watch represents our family, our struggles and triumphs. It's not a shortcut to success. It's a reminder of where we come from. You don't need to steal it to find your own path." The watch, with its delicate hands and intricate engravings, was not merely a piece of jewelry. It was a legacy, a symbol of the resilience and hard work that had shaped their family's history. Elijah ran a hand through his hair, frustration giving way to a sense of defeat. "I know, but it's hard to see it that way when I feel like I'm drowning in your legacy. All I ever wanted was your approval, but it always felt out of reach." His voice trembled slightly, and for the first time, Marcus saw the boy he used to know, the one full of dreams and laughter, before the weight of expectations had pushed him down. Memories of Elijah's childhood flooded back, his first bike ride, the triumphant grin when he finally learned to swim, and the endless hours they had spent together, building model airplanes and sharing stories. Marcus's heart twisted at the realization. "I never meant for you to feel that way. I thought I was doing right by you." He gestured to the watch, a tangible connection to their shared history. "How about we make a deal? You keep the watch for now, but use it as a reminder of what we can build together. And when you're ready, you can pass it on as a symbol of your own achievements." The proposal hung in the air, offering a new dimension to their relationship, a chance to forge a deeper connection. Elijah blinked, surprise flickering across his face. "You'd really let me have it? Just like that?" The skepticism in his voice was palpable, a testament to the roadblocks their relationship had faced. The watch had always been a point of contention, a symbol of Marcus's expectations, and now it was being offered as a gesture of trust. A leap of faith that both men were hesitant to take. "Only if you promise to use it as motivation, not just a trophy," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "I want you to carve your own way, but that can't happen if you're constantly looking for a way to escape." His words were a call to action, an invitation to Elijah to step into his own light rather than remaining in the shadow of his father's legacy. Silence settled between them, thick and tangible. The tension slowly dissipated, replaced by a fragile hope. "I'll try, Dad," Elijah finally said, his voice a mixture of resolve and uncertainty. I don't want to feel this lost anymore." The vulnerability in his tone was disarming, a reminder of the boy who had once looked up to him with unwavering admiration. Marcus nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "Neither do I. We can figure this out together. You don't have to do it alone." He smiled, a small gesture that felt like a sunrise breaking through the darkness that had enveloped them for so long. There was a glimmer of understanding in Elijah's eyes, a realization that perhaps the chasm between them could be bridged. As they sat together in the dim light, the shadows seemed to recede, revealing the potential for healing. Elijah reached for the watch, the glint of metal catching the light and reflecting their shared determination. "Then let's start fresh," he said, a flicker of enthusiasm igniting in his eyes. "I have some ideas for that business, and I'd love your input." The mere mention of the word business filled the room with a sense of possibility, as if the air itself crackled with the promise of new beginnings. Marcus felt a surge of pride at his son's willingness to share. "I'd like that, but let's make sure it's something you're passionate about, not just what you think I want to hear." He leaned forward, curiosity piqued. "What do you have in mind?" The question opened the door to a world of creativity and innovation, a space where Elijah could express himself freely without the burden of expectations hanging over him. Elijah's face lit up, the weight of their past lifting just enough to allow a spark of excitement to shine through. "I've been thinking about opening a workshop for customizing watches. There's a market for it, and I could create something unique, something that would tell a story." His enthusiasm was infectious, and for the first time in a long while, Marcus felt the stirrings of hope. The idea was brilliant, a perfect blend of artistry and entrepreneurship, and it offered a way for Elijah to channel his creativity into something tangible. "Now that's a plan," Marcus encouraged, feeling a sense of pride swell in his chest. "You have the talent, Elijah. You just need the confidence to believe in yourself." The words came pouring out, fueled by a newfound determination to support his son in ways he hadn't before. The thought of Elijah crafting his own identity, of forging a path that was uniquely his, filled Marcus with a sense of joy he hadn't felt in years. They began to brainstorm, their voices weaving through the dim room like a symphony of possibilities. The shadows seemed to grow less ominous, the light from the lamp casting a warm glow that infused the moment with a sense of renewal. Ideas flowed freely between them, each suggestion building on the last, creating a tapestry of dreams that felt within reach. Hours passed, and as the night deepened, the room felt less like a battleground and more like a sanctuary. The watch, now resting in Elijah's hands, became a symbol of their new beginning, a beacon of hope in the darkness. The ticking of its hands, once a reminder of the tensions that had existed between them, now transformed into a metronome of possibility, marking the rhythm of their shared aspirations. As Marcus listened to his son, he felt the burdens of the past begin to lift, replaced by a hopeful anticipation for the future. Perhaps, together, they could build something even more valuable than a watch, a relationship founded on trust, understanding, and shared dreams. In that moment, as laughter began to fill the space where silence had once reigned, Marcus realized that the shadows of betrayal were receding. The light of possibility shone brightly ahead, illuminating a path they could walk together, hand in hand. Elijah's voice broke through Marcus's thoughts, a burst of enthusiasm that filled the room. "What if I designed a line of watches that told a story, each one inspired by different moments in our family's history?" His eyes sparkled with excitement, and Marcus could see the vision forming in his son's mind, an artistic endeavor that would intertwine their past with his future. "That's a fantastic idea," Marcus exclaimed, feeling a swell of pride. "You could incorporate those family stories, the lessons we've learned, into the designs. It would be a way to honor our heritage while also carving your own identity." The possibilities unfolded like a flower blooming, vibrant and full of life, and for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt as though they were both moving forward together, rather than apart. Elijah nodded, his excitement palpable. "I can even involve the community, maybe host workshops where people can customize their own pieces, blending their stories with our family legacy." The thought of a workshop filled with laughter and creativity, where people came together to share their narratives, ignited a fire within him. As the night wore on, the shadows danced around them, but they no longer felt oppressive. Instead, they were a backdrop to the budding relationship between father and son, a relationship that was no longer defined by expectations and disappointments, but by understanding and mutual respect. The watch, once a point of contention, had become a symbol of their journey toward healing, a bridge across the chasm that had separated them for so long. In that moment, Marcus realized that they were not just building a business. They were rebuilding their bond, layer by layer, brick by brick. They had started to lay the foundation for a relationship that embraced both their past and their future, one that allowed space for growth, creativity, and, above all, love. As they continued to dream and plan, the world outside faded away. In the sanctuary of that dimly lit room, father and son began to write a new story, one filled with hope, understanding, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.